I stood there frozen as I overheard my son and his wife plotting behind my back to push me out. Was I really just an inconvenience to them? I still remember the day it all started, the day everything I thought I knew about family love and loyalty was put to the test. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind where the world feels still yet everything beneath the surface is changing. I was sitting in the living room flipping through a photo album when Ryan, my son, walked in. His wife, Chloe, followed closely behind, looking hesitant yet determined. "Mom, we've been thinking," Ryan started, his voice steady but not quite meeting my eyes. "There's just no space for you here anymore. We're trying to build a life of our own, and it's becoming difficult." Chloe, standing beside him, nodded. "It's not personal, Eleanor, but we just need room. It's for our future." At that moment, I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. For a brief second, I thought about everything I'd done for them. The $180,000 I gave them from James's life insurance to help them buy this house, the countless hours I spent taking care of Ryan as a child, the sacrifices. All those years of love, support, and sacrifice, and here I was being told there was no longer space for me. But I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I simply smiled, nodding slowly. "Okay," I said, my voice calm, even though my heart was anything but. I stood up, gathered my things, and left the room without another word. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have possibly understood in that moment, was that I still owned half of that house. It was mine as much as it was theirs. But that wasn't the time to confront them. Not yet. I wasn't going to fight back in anger or revenge. No, I had something much more powerful at my disposal, the truth. As I walked out the door, I couldn't help but wonder, was it really over? Or had this just been the beginning of something new? When I moved in with Ryan and Chloe, I was hoping for a fresh start. After all, I had just given my son $180,000 from James's life insurance to help them buy their dream home in that quiet suburban neighborhood. It felt like the least I could do after everything James and I had built together. I wanted to help Ryan and Chloe secure their future. And maybe a part of me thought I'd finally have a place to call home again after losing James and everything that came with him. The house was beautiful, no doubt, sleek, modern, and shining with a sense of newness. It was the kind of place you'd see in a magazine, a large open kitchen, high ceilings, glass windows letting in plenty of light. It was supposed to be the perfect family home. But as I stepped through the door for the first time, something felt off. Yes, the house was gorgeous, but it lacked warmth. It felt more like a showroom than a home. The walls were white, the floors cold gray tile, and every room felt a little too perfect, a little too polished. No lived-in feel, no personal touches. It was as if it were designed to impress, but not to nurture. I was given the guest suite downstairs, a small room tucked away from the main living areas. It wasn't much, a twin bed, a half bath, and no closet to speak of. The room was bare, just a few pieces of furniture and a small nightstand. Nothing like the cozy bedroom I once had at our old house, where I could sit by the window and watch the seasons change. But I didn't complain. I was grateful to be there, I told myself. At least I was close to my son. In the beginning, things seemed okay. Chloe and Ryan were welcoming, at least on the surface. Chloe would invite me to dinner, and Ryan would occasionally make me coffee in the mornings, a gesture I appreciated even if the coffee was never quite to my liking. There were smiles, small talk, and laughter at first. But as the days went on, I started noticing small changes, little things that made me feel like I didn't quite belong. Chloe, who had initially seemed so sweet, started making passive-aggressive remarks in front of me as if she didn't care I could hear. "Oh, it's like having two kids," now she joked to her friends on the phone, barely hiding the bitterness in her tone. I'd smile, not wanting to make a scene, but it stung more than she realized. Ryan, on the other hand, started avoiding me. When I'd ask for help with simple tasks like adjusting the Wi-Fi settings or moving something in the kitchen, he'd make excuses or say he was busy. It wasn't anything overt, but I began to feel like I was imposing on them, like I was a guest who wasn't really wanted. The house was big, yes, but I felt more like an outsider than I had expected. The worst part was the silence that began to build. There were fewer family dinners, less time spent together. The warmth I thought would come with moving in the closeness was slipping away. Instead, I found myself quietly folding towels, wiping down counters, and avoiding the awkwardness. I wasn't angry, not yet. But I couldn't help but wonder, how long could I ignore the growing discomfort that seemed to settle between us? Maybe it was all just in my head, I told myself. Maybe I was overthinking things. But as the days passed, those little comments and actions added up. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't truly part of their lives anymore. I had given them everything, my love, my savings, and in return, they couldn't even offer me a place in their home. Not really. At first, I tried to ignore the small things. I told myself it was just a phase, that I was simply adjusting to a new routine. But over time, the changes became harder to overlook, and the discomfort that had once felt like a whisper in the back of my mind started to grow louder, impossible to ignore. It began with something as trivial as the fridge. I had never thought of it as a big deal, but when I went to grab something from the kitchen one afternoon, I noticed the fridge door was locked. The padlock hung there, a small detail that immediately caught my attention. I stood there for a moment, wondering if I had missed something. Maybe Chloe was meal prepping. Maybe she just didn't want things getting mixed up. But when I asked her, she smiled and shrugged it off, saying, "Just a precaution. We don't want anyone messing with the food." I didn't argue, but I couldn't help feeling that something wasn't right. The fridge, locked like a vault, seemed like a strange thing to do in a home that was meant to be mine as much as it was theirs. The next change was even more subtle, but no less unsettling. The Wi-Fi modem, which had been in the living room, was suddenly relocated to the upstairs office. I didn't say anything about it. After all, it was their house, their decision. But when I went to ask Ryan about the change, he brushed it off, muttering something about better reception upstairs. It made sense, I guess, but it felt more like a way to distance me, to keep me from accessing the shared spaces. But it wasn't just the physical changes that bothered me. It was the way they made me feel increasingly invisible. The small gestures, the barely concealed remarks started to take a toll on me. And then one evening, I overheard something that stopped me dead in my tracks. I was walking down the hallway heading toward the kitchen to make my tea when I heard Ryan's voice, soft and low, but unmistakably clear. "She won't leave if we keep being nice. We've got to push her out without a fight." My heart skipped a beat, my hand frozen on the doorknob. I could hear Chloe's voice in reply, sharp and cold. "She won't sign over her share unless she feels unwanted. Make it uncomfortable for her. She'll leave on her own." I stood there, stunned, unable to move. My own son, the child I had raised, was plotting behind my back to get me to leave. He wasn't even willing to ask me directly. Instead, he and Chloe were working together, playing a game of manipulation to get me out of their lives. I could feel my pulse racing in my chest, the words echoing in my ears. Make it uncomfortable for her. I had given them everything. I had sacrificed so much, and now I was nothing more than an inconvenience to them, a burden they wanted to discard. I tried to steady my breathing, but the weight of their words pressed down on me. That night, I sat alone at the dinner table, eating in silence. I had made chicken Alfredo, Josh's favorite, but neither he nor Chloe came down to eat. Chloe said she had already eaten, and Ryan mumbled something about being busy with work. I pushed the food around on my plate, my appetite completely gone, as I reflected on everything. I had raised Josh through every hardship, every milestone. Soccer games, late-night talks, scraped knees, and birthdays. I had been his rock, and now I was nothing but an obstacle. I had to face the truth they weren't going to tell me. They didn't want me here. They didn't want to share their home. And that was when it hit me. I wasn't just being ignored. I was being actively pushed away. And I had to decide, how long was I going to let this go on? How much more could I take before I finally stood up for myself? That night I went to bed early. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about the life I had built, the family I had raised, and the painful realization that they didn't need me the way I had always needed them. The morning it all came to a head felt just like any other. I had woken up early as usual and made myself a cup of tea in the quiet solitude of the kitchen. The house was still asleep, the silence oddly comforting. I was used to the routine, now getting up before anyone else, taking time for myself, waiting for the noise of their day to start. But that morning was different. As I sipped my tea, I noticed Chloe standing in the doorway of the kitchen, her arms folded across her chest. She didn't smile, didn't offer her usual greeting. Her face was carefully blank, and her posture seemed rigid, as if she had prepared herself for what she was about to say. "Eleanor," she said, her voice calm, almost rehearsed. "We think it's time you found your own place. For your comfort," her words hit me like a slap, cold and sharp. I hadn't expected this, not in the way it was being delivered so matter-of-factly, as if she were simply suggesting I move to a different room, as if I were some guest who overstayed my welcome, rather than the woman who had raised her husband and helped build the life they now lived. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could gather my thoughts, Ryan walked into the kitchen, his face set in a serious expression. "Mom," he said, his tone impersonal, "we don't have space for you here anymore. It's not working. You need to go." Just like that. It was final. No emotions, no apologies, just a declaration that I no longer belonged in the place I had helped build, in the home I had financially supported. I looked at Ryan, the boy I had raised, the one who had once hugged me tightly when he was younger, who had promised me that I'd always have a place in his life. And now, here he was standing before me telling me I had to leave. The words stung, but I didn't let them show. Instead, I forced a smile, though it wasn't the warm kind I had once offered freely. I simply nodded a silent acknowledgement that I understood. No anger, no accusations. I wasn't going to fight them. Not now. "I'll be out by tonight," I said quietly, my voice steady, even though inside everything was shaking. Chloe blinked clearly, taken aback by my calm response, but Ryan nodded as if it was no more than an expected task on his to-do list. He didn't even seem to notice the hurt behind my words, the betrayal. "Thanks, Mom," he muttered, already turning to leave. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of their dismissal pressing down on me, but I didn't argue. I didn't beg them to reconsider. Instead, I walked quietly to my room and began to pack my things. It wasn't just clothes or belongings I was packing. I was packing away the years of love, care, and sacrifice I had given them. I was packing the dreams I had once had of sharing my life with my family, the ones I had believed would always be there. But what Ryan and Chloe didn't know was that in my silence, I still had power. I had something they couldn't take away. They had forced me out of their home, but I still owned 49% of it. They may have pushed me out, but I wasn't going to let them get away with treating me this way without consequences. I wasn't going to make a scene, but I knew I had a choice. I had the ability to make sure their so-called dream home would soon become their nightmare. It wasn't about revenge, it was about making sure I wasn't invisible anymore, that I wasn't going to let them erase me from the life I had helped build. After I packed my things after the final goodbye that wasn't a goodbye, I found myself standing in front of the motel, clutching the red folder I had packed along with my clothes and the photo of James. The motel was quiet, the kind of place you could easily overlook, a place that felt a little too worn, a little too faded for someone like me, someone who had given so much. But it was my refuge now, and oddly, it felt like the only place I could think clearly. I set the folder down on the bed and stared at it for a long time. The house deed lay there, a constant reminder of the home I had helped build, the place I had given so much for money, time, love, and yet here I was, being pushed aside like I was nothing. As I sat there, I felt the weight of everything crashing down. The betrayal, the hurt, the empty promises. Ryan and Chloe had treated me like an inconvenience, but they didn't know the half of it. The folder with all its papers contained more than just the deed to the house. It held the power to make things right, to give me control when I felt so powerless. The house wasn't just theirs, it was mine too, a fact they clearly hadn't considered when they decided to kick me out. As I flipped through the papers, I found something that made my heart drop. Ryan had taken out a $95,000 loan using the house as collateral. The loan hadn't been paid back. The payments were months overdue. I sat still for a moment, letting the information sink in. Ryan had borrowed money for a business venture one I never knew about, and now the house, my house too, was in danger of foreclosure because of it. He hadn't even told me. He had hidden it, and now it was all coming to light. It was a sickening realization. The house I had helped them buy, the house I had given them everything for, was now teetering on the edge of financial ruin. And Ryan, my own son, had made sure I wouldn't know until it was too late. But I wasn't going to sit back and let them take everything from me without any consequences. Not anymore. I made up my mind. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Let them pretend like I was the one who had wronged them. If they wanted space, they could have it, but not at the cost of my dignity. I went to the small motel office and asked to use the printer. There, in the silence of the little room, I made 5 copies of the deed. 1 for me, 1 for a lawyer if things got messy, and 3 more copies just in case I needed them for something else. I spent the next hour filling out the necessary forms, signing my name with the same deliberate care I had when I signed Josh's school permission slips. I could feel the weight of those years in every stroke of the pen. This wasn't just paperwork, it was my declaration of independence, my claim to what was rightfully mine. The decision wasn't easy, but it was clear. I would sign off my claim to the house, enabling the foreclosure proceedings to begin. It was time for Ryan and Chloe to face the consequences of their actions. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I wasn't even angry. I had simply reached a point where I realized I had nothing left to lose. If they were going to treat me as if I were disposable, then I would make sure they understood what that truly meant. The deed wasn't just a piece of paper, it was my silent weapon, and I was ready to wield it. The morning after I sent the signed release and officially set the foreclosure in motion, I knew things would escalate. But I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. It was almost like a tidal wave, swift and all-consuming. Within hours, I began seeing posts from Chloe on social media. At first it was subtle, just a vague comment about ungrateful people and betrayal within families, but it didn't take long before the posts became direct. Chloe painted me as the villain, as someone who had done the unthinkable, sabotaging their home and future. "You can't trust people who claim to love you," she wrote in one post, "especially when they use their power to control your life." And then there was Ryan. His post followed shortly after. A photo of us from years ago, just the 2 of us at an amusement park, him as a young boy with ice cream dripping down his chin, smiling up at me. The caption, however, couldn't have been more different from the memory it depicted. "It's hard when the people who raised you turn on you," Ryan wrote, "when they destroy everything you've worked for." His words were like knives, each one twisting deeper than the last. He didn't mention the loan. He didn't mention the money I had given them. He didn't mention anything that might explain why I had to do what I did. No, to Ryan and Chloe, I was the villain in this story. As the posts piled up, I could feel my heart begin to race. They were turning people against me, twisting the truth to fit their narrative. They were rewriting our history, and I was left with nothing but silence. But I didn't reply, not on social media, not over the phone, not through text. I remained silent as much as it hurt. I knew what they were trying to do. They wanted me to react, to get angry, to make a mistake they could use against me. But I had learned long ago that silence could be the loudest answer, and so I let them spin their lies. But what they didn't know was that I had a different plan. Instead of engaging in their battle of words, I decided to share the truth with my family, close family, the people who would listen and understand. I sent personal messages to my siblings and cousins, explaining everything: the loan Ryan had taken out behind my back, the money I had given them to help buy the house, and most importantly, how they had forced me out. I shared the details they never would, how I was pushed aside and manipulated by my own son and his wife, who had once promised me I'd always have a place with them, and then I did something I knew would rattle them, something they couldn't control. I posted the evidence online. I posted a photo of the deed, the loan documents, and screenshots of texts from Ryan and Chloe where they discussed pushing me out. I shared the bank transfer records showing the $180,000 I had given them money I would never see again. I exposed it all, letting the world see the truth they had tried so hard to bury. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of relief. The truth was out. I wasn't going to let them dictate this narrative anymore. It wasn't about revenge, but it was about showing the world the manipulation I had endured, the way my own family had treated me. And as the posts went up, the comments flooded in. Some people didn't know what to believe. Some sided with Ryan and Chloe, easily swayed by their story. But others, family members, old friends, began to ask questions. Why didn't you say anything before? Why didn't they tell us the whole story? The tide was slowly turning. The fallout was just beginning. But for the first time, I felt like I was no longer invisible. I had been quiet for so long, but the truth had a way of speaking louder than anything else. The days that followed the fallout were a blur of comments, messages, and calls. The online attacks against me didn't stop. Every time I checked social media, there was another post, another fabricated story about how I had destroyed their lives. Ryan and Chloe painted me as a heartless villain, a greedy woman who had done everything for control. The lies they spread were relentless, but I refused to get sucked into their drama. It would have been so easy to react, to argue, to defend myself, to shout back at the world, but I knew better now. I had learned the hard way that getting dragged into a public battle wouldn't change anything. It would only give them more power to manipulate the narrative. So I chose silence, the one thing they couldn't take from me. I let the noise of the world swirl around me while I focused on what mattered most, myself. I spent my days in the quiet of the motel, a place that had become my sanctuary. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every morning I walked along the beach, letting the sound of the waves calm my racing thoughts. For the first time in years, I felt peace. I had been caught up in a whirlwind of obligations, expectations, and the unspoken duty of being a mother, a grandmother, and a provider. But now, with no one to care for but myself, I could breathe. I didn't let myself dwell on the bitterness, the anger, or the hurt. Every time the thought of Ryan and Chloe crossed my mind, I took a deep breath and pushed it away. I chose healing. I chose to focus on the small joys, reading a book, sipping tea, in the quiet of the morning, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin during my walks. Slowly I began to feel like myself again, like the woman I had lost in the whirlwind of being a mother and grandmother. But there was no denying that the situation had taken its toll on me. The emotional strain was exhausting. Despite everything, despite the quiet, the healing, there were moments when I couldn't help but feel the weight of what had happened. The foreclosure notice that came one morning was the final blow. The letter was formal, crisp, and cold, a reminder of everything that had been lost. When I saw the notice, I felt no satisfaction. I had expected a sense of triumph, a sense of justice, but all I felt was acceptance. The truth had come out. Ryan and Chloe had made their choices, and now they had to face the consequences. But it didn't feel like a victory. It wasn't about winning. It was about the painful realization that I had lost my family, my place in their lives. The foreclosure was a natural consequence of their actions. They had forced me out. They had taken advantage of my generosity and my love, and now they were paying the price. I had no anger left to give them, just a deep, quiet understanding that sometimes the things we fight for aren't meant to be. Sometimes the best we can do is walk away with our dignity intact. I didn't want to dwell on the foreclosure or what it meant for Ryan and Chloe. Instead, I turned inward, focusing on healing. I knew that in time the pain would fade. I had learned that I could rebuild my life brick by brick, no matter what I had lost. What mattered now was the future, and how I chose to live it. When I packed my bags and walked away from Ryan and Chloe's house, I thought it would feel like the end of something. And in many ways, it was. But as I moved into my new 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of town near the beach, I realized it wasn't the end at all. It was the beginning of something new, something I had long forgotten. The apartment was nothing like the grand house I had helped Ryan and Chloe purchase, but it was mine. The first time I walked in, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. It wasn't just the simple beauty of the place, it was the quiet. The air felt different here, lighter, and as I opened the windows to let in the breeze, I could hear the distant sound of the waves crashing against the shore. It was the kind of sound that calms the soul. I had spent so much time fighting for space, fighting to belong, that I forgot what it felt like to just breathe to exist without the pressure of expectations. For the first time in a long while, I was free. Free from the toxic atmosphere at Ryan and Chloe's house, free from the constant manipulation, the guilt, the feeling of being unwanted. This apartment, simple and modest as it was, became my sanctuary. It was where I could finally let go of everything I had been carrying for so long. I quickly settled into a new routine. I woke up early every day to take long walks along the beach. The mornings were quiet, the world still asleep, and I reveled in the stillness. Each step I took on the sand felt like a small victory, a step toward reclaiming my life, my peace. I no longer had to tiptoe around watching my words, avoiding awkward glances. I could be myself, no apologies. One of the things I had always loved but never had time for was painting. It was something I used to do in my younger years, something that made me feel alive. I had put it aside when life became too demanding, when I was consumed by raising my family, by supporting them. But now, with my new life ahead of me, I decided to pick up my brushes again. I enrolled in a painting class at the community center down the road. The first class was intimidating and I felt out of place, at first surrounded by strangers, unsure of myself. But as the days passed and I picked up the paintbrush, I started to lose myself in the strokes. It wasn't about creating a masterpiece, it was about finding joy in the act of creation again, about giving myself the space to feel something other than the weight of my past. And then there were the quiet moments by the ocean. I would sit on the small balcony of my apartment, a cup of tea in hand, and watch the sun set over the horizon. The vibrant colors of the sky reflecting on the water made me feel small, but in the best way. It was a reminder that the world was so much bigger than my troubles, that there was beauty to be found even in the aftermath of pain. I realized that this was the life I had been longing for, a life where I could simply exist without fear, without the heavy burden of others' expectations. The days seemed to stretch on in the best way possible. I wasn't rushing anymore. I wasn't trying to fit into anyone's mold. And for the first time in a long while, I began to feel like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. This new beginning wasn't just about the apartment or the walks or the painting. It was about finding myself again. It was about living for me and no one else. And that I realized was the greatest freedom I could have ever asked for. It was just another ordinary morning when I found the letter resting on my doorstep. It was from Ryan, his handwriting on the envelope unmistakable. I stared at it for a long moment, the weight of the past few weeks rushing over me. A letter, an apology, I thought. Was this the moment where everything would finally come full circle? The closure I had been waiting for, I hesitated for a while, running my fingers over the paper, wondering if it was worth opening. I knew what to expect. It wasn't the first time Ryan had tried to reach out. After everything that had happened after the foreclosure, the posts, the public accusations, I had started to prepare myself for the inevitable. There would be guilt, regret, and some form of apology. But would it be real? Would it be enough to heal the wounds they had caused? I didn't know. But I was about to find out. I opened the envelope, slowly reading the first few lines of Ryan's letter. It started with a simple, "Mom, I'm sorry for how things turned out." The words on the page blurred as I skimmed through the rest of the letter, and I could feel my chest tightening. Ryan apologized for the way things were handled and expressed that he never meant to hurt me. He spoke about his own struggles with the business and how everything had gotten out of hand. But there was no mention of the deep betrayal, the way he and Chloe had forced me out, the way they had manipulated me and painted me as the villain. What struck me most was the tone of the letter. It was apologetic, but it lacked the accountability I needed. He never truly acknowledged the hurt he had caused me, the way his actions had affected me, and how his betrayal had torn apart the foundation of our relationship. The apology felt hollow, like he was sorry things had escalated, but not truly sorry for his actions. It was the kind of apology you give when you realize things have gone wrong, but you still can't admit the full extent of the damage you've caused. As I finished reading the letter, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to reply, to try to explain my pain, to make him understand how much his betrayal had hurt. But another part of me knew better. I had already said all I needed to say through my actions, by walking away, by taking control of my life, by refusing to be treated as invisible. Ryan's apology was just that, an apology. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I put the letter down on the kitchen counter and took a deep breath. I had moved on. I had spent so much of my life trying to hold on to something that was never really there, a relationship built on mutual respect and trust. But now I saw things clearly. I had a life to live, one that was free from the manipulation and guilt that had plagued me for far too long. I chose not to respond. I knew it wouldn't change anything. In a way, I had already forgiven him. But forgiveness didn't mean I had to let him back into my life. I had found peace in my own way, and nothing Ryan said in his letter could take that away from me. So I moved forward. I let the letter sit unanswered, and I turned my focus back to the life I was building, one step at a time, in peace and solitude, without the weight of their actions holding me back. A few weeks had passed since Ryan's letter, and things seemed to settle into a new rhythm. The noise from social media had quieted, and the constant attacks on me started to fade. The calmness of my life in the apartment by the beach was a balm for my soul. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, peaceful quiet, free from the chaos that Ryan and Chloe had created. But then one afternoon, as I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, my phone buzzed with a message from Chloe. I had expected this sooner or later, though I had hoped it wouldn't come at all. But here it was, a message from the woman who had once welcomed me into her home, only to turn against me when it suited her. Her message was simple at first. "Eleanor, I really need to talk to you. Things have gotten out of hand and we don't know what to do. Can you please help us with the situation? I don't know who else to turn to." The words were polite, even desperate, but I could hear the underlying message. She wasn't reaching out because she had any real remorse. No, she was reaching out because they were in trouble, and I had been a convenient solution when things were going well. Now, with everything falling apart, she was looking for help. I paused before responding, taking a moment to breathe. Chloe had never been one to admit wrongdoing, and I knew this message was no different. She wasn't trying to reconcile, she wasn't seeking closure, she was trying to manipulate me into getting involved again. She knew that if she played the right cards, she could probably get me to soften. She could pull at my heartstrings and use my love for my family to reel me back in. But I had already been down that road, and I wasn't going back. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I put the phone down and walked to the window. The ocean outside was calm, the waves gently lapping at the shore, and I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. I had made a choice, one that was hard but necessary, and I was standing by it. The next morning, Chloe sent another message. This time it was different. She tried a different tactic, one I knew all too well. "Eleanor," she wrote, "I know things haven't been easy between us, but Emma needs you. She misses you. We all miss you. She's so young, and I just think she deserves to have a relationship with her grandmother." And there it was, The trump card, Emma, my granddaughter. Chloe thought that by pulling Emma into the equation, she could guilt me into helping them again. She thought that by invoking my love for my grandchild, she could break down the walls I had carefully built around myself. But the thing was, I knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't about Emma, it was about Chloe wanting something from me, and I wasn't going to fall for it again. I sat there for a long time reading Chloe's words over and over. I could feel the tug of emotion, the familiar pull of family of love, but I had learned the hard way that love wasn't enough when it came with strings attached. It wasn't enough when it was used as a tool for manipulation. I didn't respond. I knew that if I did, I would only be opening the door to more guilt, more manipulation. So I chose peace. I chose to protect myself, to hold my boundaries firm. Chloe's message went unanswered. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. I had already given them everything I could. What I needed now was peace, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. As the days passed, I felt a quiet strength grow within me. I had faced the hardest truth that my family, the people I loved most, had used me. But in doing so, they had also given me something invaluable, the courage to stand up for myself, the wisdom to walk away from toxicity, and the peace that comes with knowing when to let go. Chloe and Ryan's struggles were no longer my burden to carry. I had moved on, and I wasn't going to allow their attempts at manipulation to derail the life I had started to build. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. It was late one evening when the final message from Ryan came through. I had been expecting it, knowing that the silence between us couldn't last forever. But even though I anticipated it, I felt a tightness in my chest as I saw his name pop up on my phone. It was a habit of mine over the years to always check his messages, to always feel like I had to respond to keep the connection, to keep the peace. But not anymore. This time I wasn't rushing to read it. This time I already knew what it would say. I hesitated for a moment before opening the email. The subject line was simple. "I'm sorry, Mom." I took a deep breath and clicked it open, my heart already prepared for the familiar mixture of guilt deflection and remorse that had defined our interactions over the past few months. Ryan's email started with an apology, the same words I had heard before. He wrote that he was sorry for the way everything had unfolded, for the damage to our relationship. But then as I read further, the tone began to shift. It wasn't just an apology, it was a justification. "I never meant for things to get this way," he wrote. "But you have to understand, I was trying to protect my family and I felt cornered. I'm just trying to make the best decisions for us." And there it was. He had once again turned himself into the victim. The same pattern, the same manipulation. He couldn't just take full responsibility for what had happened. No, Ryan had to position himself as the one who had been wronged, the one who had been forced into difficult decisions. And once again, my pain, my loss was minimized as if I had somehow brought it on myself. He ended the email by saying he wished things could go back to how they were, that he wished he could undo everything. But he didn't ask for forgiveness. Instead, he simply said, "I hope you can understand where I'm coming from, and maybe we can fix things someday." I closed the email without responding. The weight of it all, the manipulation, the guilt, the excuses no longer had a hold on me. I had learned so much over the past few months, so much about boundaries, self-respect, and the importance of recognizing when something is over. Ryan's words didn't hurt anymore. In fact, they felt like a final piece of the puzzle that had been falling into place. Some relationships are better left in the past. I had spent years trying to mend what had been broken, trying to hold on to a bond that no longer existed in its purest form. I had invested so much of myself, but in the end, I realized that I couldn't keep sacrificing my peace, my dignity, just to keep a relationship alive. I took a moment to sit back, letting the silence fill the room. It was almost as if the weight of the email had lifted something inside me. I had finally let go. Not out of anger, but out of acceptance. Ryan had made his choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't need his apology, and I didn't need to try to fix what couldn't be fixed. The next morning I woke up in my apartment, the sunlight filtering through the windows, casting warm golden light across the room. I had a cup of tea by my side, and the sound of the ocean was just beyond my balcony. This was my new life, a life where I could breathe, where I could find joy again. I had reclaimed my peace. I felt empowered. For the first time in a long time, I was free. Free from the toxic dynamics of my past, free from the emotional manipulations that had clouded my every move. I was no longer a victim of anyone else's choices. I was the author of my own story now, and I would write the next chapter with strength, with clarity, and with love for myself. I didn't need Ryan's approval or anyone else's. I had everything I needed right here within me. As I sat in my small apartment watching the sun dip below the horizon, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The path hadn't been easy, and the decisions I had to make were some of the hardest I'd ever faced. But as I looked out at the ocean, the soft waves lapping at the shore, I knew I had made the right choice. I had let go of the past, let go of the guilt, let go of the manipulation. Ryan and Chloe's toxic behavior had tried to control my life, and for a long time I had allowed it. But not anymore. I had chosen peace. It wasn't about winning or getting back at them. It was about reclaiming my life, my happiness, and my own sense of self-worth. The days were quieter now. No more walking on eggshells, no more pretending everything was okay when I knew it wasn't. I had created space for myself, a space filled with the things that truly mattered. My morning walks by the beach, my painting classes, and the moments of silence that filled my apartment with a tranquility I had long forgotten. I had learned that true peace doesn't come from external validation or from trying to please others. It comes from within, from the decision to finally put yourself first. I no longer needed to seek approval or constantly prove my worth. I had nothing to prove. I had found fulfillment in my own company and the quiet freedom that came with letting go of people who no longer served my well-being. The relationship I had with Ryan and Chloe was a chapter in my life that had come to an end, and while it was painful, it was necessary for me to move forward. The peace I had created for myself was more than just a physical space. It was a mental and emotional shift. It was about choosing me, choosing my happiness, and for the first time in years, I was at peace, content with where I was and where I was going. The future was mine to shape, and I was ready to embrace it fully. In life, we often find ourselves giving so much to others, our love, our time, our resources, believing that if we give enough, we will receive the same in return. But sometimes, despite our best efforts, we are left empty, forgotten, or worse, manipulated. Eleanor's journey is a powerful reminder that while we can give everything to those we love, we must never lose sight of our own worth and the importance of boundaries. There comes a moment in life when we realize that the relationships we've invested in may no longer serve us. It's painful, yes, but also liberating. Letting go of toxic people or situations doesn't mean we stop loving them. It means we finally start loving ourselves enough to let go of what's harming us. Eleanor chose peace over chaos, and in doing so, she reclaimed her life, her happiness, and her dignity. We live in a world that often glorifies sacrifice, especially within families. But it's crucial to understand that our value isn't determined by what we give to others. Our worth is inherent, and we deserve respect, love, and kindness no matter what we've given or done in the past. So my question to you is, how much are you willing to sacrifice for others at the expense of your own happiness? Sometimes the hardest thing we can do is to choose ourselves. But I promise you, it's the most powerful choice you'll ever make. If you've ever had to let go of someone or something for your own peace, share your story in the comments below. Let's support each other on this journey of healing and self-love. You are not alone.